Hey everybody. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about this question that I get a lot from my clients that I work with and actually people in general that I've worked with over the years, not in the med-injured or the medication world, which is this question of like, am I delaying healing by what I'm doing or not doing? Am I getting in the way of my healing? Am I delaying healing? Will I heal if I do this thing or I don't do this thing? So I want to kind of circle around and talk about this. And it's interesting because David Powers, who's another benzo coach, who's a good friend of mine, posted something. It was in his blog. So if you're not, I don't know if you have to be a member of his school to be on his blog. I am, just because I think he posts a lot of great stuff. And in his blog that he actually put up today, he was actually talking about this very thing that I was wanting to come on and talk about in a little bit of a different way. And so I won't go into quoting David, but he brings up a really good point in his blog today about the adaptation of the nervous system and how people get afraid when they go and they kind of push out into some new territory, trying some new things, trying to get into their lives a little bit, and they feel a pushback in symptoms, or they feel worse and they feel like they're hurting themselves, they're doing more damage. And he was talking about kind of the pain that comes with adaptation. And he actually made a great example of, you know, when you start weight training, you fully expect that your muscles are going to be incredibly sore. That's not because you've damaged them. It's not because you're doing the wrong thing. It's because they're needing to adapt. So I'm going to kind of speak around this very topic today because it's on my mind as well, but I thought David did a great job of capturing that. So if you're not a member of that and you're not on his blog, I would highly recommend it. He puts out some really good content. And I'll get into some of the stuff about coaching at the end of this talk. So there's a few more things I want to say about that. In terms of am I delaying healing? The way I think about this is it's really nuanced, and I think the hard part is that when you're really anxious and you're really struggling in this process, nuance is sometimes we can't afford nuance, right? We kind of want to be hit over the head straightforward with an answer, like just answer the damn question, John, right? But the answer to the question is actually somewhat complicated because there isn't really necessarily one right or wrong way to do it. But I am going to do my best to be as straightforward as I can in answering this question. So when you're thinking about, am I delaying healing? And I normally hear this in the context of, by pushing out and trying to do more, am I going to delay my healing? Am I going to make things worse? Or by, resting and taking time off work and, not going to some of the things that I would normally go to, not doing some of the things I would normally do. Am I delaying my healing by not doing those things? And what I would say is, in short, the answer is how you do or do not do those things, okay? And I'm not trying to be a jerk here and make this more complicated than it needs to be. I'm actually trying to make it pretty simple. It's how you do or don't do those things. So for example, if you were to say to me, if you were to call me and I was working with you and you were saying, I'm just having a really rough week. It's, things have been harder at home, things have been harder at work, things have been harder with my symptoms. I'm in a bad wave, whatever it is, right? And I need downtime. I need to rest. I need to go slow this week. It would be in how you go slow that would help me work with you on whether that was a good thing or not, and trying to determine, what that right balance is, right? That nuance. And what I mean by how you do it is that if you decide to take that week or month or year off of work and you're going to ruminate and you are going to live on the forums and read stories and be in a point of comparison and be in a constant fight against this thing, chances are you're not helping yourself, okay? When people get into this idea of delaying healing, I think there's two different processes going on often. I would say for 98% of the people I talk to, there's two different processes going on. Not everyone agrees with me on this, that's okay. But I know for myself and most people I talk to, there is the thing that has happened. There is the adverse reaction, there is the withdrawal syndrome, there are the symptoms, and then there is the fear that we have about what has happened to us and what is happening to us. And it is our response to what is happening to us that then can create this secondary problem of like an anxiety disorder. And I have people that will fight me tooth and nail on this and say, no, this is organic anxiety. This is chemical anxiety. It's all chemical anxiety, guys. All of it. Okay. Just because the precipitating event was an adverse reaction to a medication or a withdrawal that is affecting the neurochemistry is no different than your neurochemistry being altered by your stress jug being tipped over by an acute stressor in your life. And I would often talk about this friend of mine who'd been in a horrible car accident and, came out and for a year and a half after her car accident had crippling panic attacks and DPDR. Crippling. Did not have that before. The trauma of the accident, the stress of the accident, the acuity of the accident tipped her stress jug to the point that she was debilitated with these symptoms. So I'm not arguing that this thing has happened to us. I'm not arguing that it's all in our heads. I am not arguing that it should have happened to us or that, believe me, if you've listened to my videos, you know by now, I'm not arguing that point. But I am arguing a primary process and a secondary process. We can't do much about the primary thing. Right? We can't do much about the panic that arises. We can't do much about the DPDR that comes on, the pain that comes, the headband, the floaty boaty, the cognitive stuff. But we can do something about how we respond to it. So when people are saying, am I delaying healing by trying to push out into my life a little bit more? And I'm noticing that as I do that, I get pushed back in my body and my symptoms. Am I damaging myself? And what I would say is how you're doing it matters. Meaning, I would not encourage anybody who's been, sidelined by this to go out and start with a personal trainer and start working out 5 days a week. But I might say, let's start walking. Doesn't mean that after you walk, you might not have some more palpitations. You might feel dizzier. You might have some anxiety while you're walking. You might have a panic attack. There's all kinds of things that can happen as that nervous system is adapting, as David kind of said in his blog. And I think that's really important. So it's how you're doing what you're doing, the attitude with which you are doing what you're doing. The behaviors matter as well, right? Because again, we are always teaching our brain something, okay? And so that is always my question to you is, what are you teaching your brain? What are you teaching your nervous system? You have a nervous system that has been overwhelmed, okay? Call it an assault, call it whatever you want. People say damage, I don't like that word. People say broken, I don't like that word. People say injured, I'm not so sure I even like that word, but I'll go with it. It has been affected, okay? Definitely impacted in a profound way. And because of that, the threat response system has gone haywire. We have become incredibly sensitized. Our nervous systems we are now in a heightened state. We are in a sensitized state, a profoundly sensitized state. As a result of that, there are hundreds of different symptoms that can erupt and stick around for a very long period of time. And then how we respond to those matters, right? And that's the teaching moment. So that part of our brain that is wildly impacted by this, which is our threat response system, our limbic system, our amygdala. And it's not just the amygdala, that's simplifying it, but the limbic system in general is our threat response system. And it's bonkers. And it is sending off all kinds of false alarms in the form of symptoms. It is a misperception of danger, okay? And we are getting all kinds of symptoms as a result of all of this. And how we respond matters. Where we go wrong is we either get the advice to do nothing and just wait it out. Yeah, time matters here. What we do and how we do it also matters here. And this is where you'll hear me say, I've worked with people that have never touched a medication, that their stress jug tipped over, they had a panic attack, they got some DPDR, they got afraid of their body and mind, they became agoraphobic. And the person that's agoraphobic for 20 years versus the person that's agoraphobic for 2 months, they're not necessarily any different. It's not like the person that's been agoraphobic for 20 years is more severe necessarily. Because the way out of agoraphobia is going to be graduated exposures outside of that. In other words, using David's language, adaptation, neuroadaptation. Okay, so this neuroplastic pain, these neuroplastic symptoms that we have as a result maybe our precipitating event was a benzo, maybe it was an antidepressant withdrawal, maybe it was a cold turkey, maybe it was an adverse reaction. But there's a precipitating event, and then there's the perpetuating factors. The perpetuating factors are how we respond over time to the fact that these symptoms are here. So again, we go back to the question always of, is this or what are we teaching at any given moment? You know, this threat that we feel that's pervasive, that's always with us, this terrible, overwhelming feeling that we're left with, these panic attacks, this anxiety, this dread, this doom, the dreeps, the dizziness, the cognitive stuff, the physical stuff. How are we responding to that? What are we teaching our brain in the moment? And how we send messages of safety to the brain is a little different. And here's another nuance, okay? So when people say, am I delaying healing? Should I be doing more positive self-talk? Positive self-talk is good, but I need to explain this to you guys a little bit more. Positive self-talk is not you talking down the symptoms, okay? These symptoms are coming as a result of a misfire in the nervous system that is in a highly sensitized state. And it doesn't speak English. You've heard me say that a million times. It doesn't speak English. You saying, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. All it hears is, Jen looks freaked out. Jen keeps saying she's okay, she's okay, she's okay. And guess what people do when they're really okay? They don't sit in a corner and rock and say, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. Right? They're taking a shower, they're washing the dishes, they're watching a TV show, they're reading a book, they're talking to a friend, they're solving a problem. They're not rocking in the corner, self-talking, okay? So that's where any tool we have can become a weapon. This is breathing, same thing. If you're breathing to get rid of something, then you are communicating to your brain further confirmation that this is a big problem. You are scared, you have gut, and you can't handle this, okay? So how we do things matters, and what we're teaching our brain at any given moment matters. And so again, that positive self-talk, that's great for that prefrontal cortex. That's great for your wise mind. Hey, you know what? So going back to my acronym DEAL, right? The D in DEAL stands for decide. I've decided I know what this is. This is a sensitized nervous system. So my positive self-talk might be, you know what, I'm okay. And because I'm okay, I've made the decision to not go down the rabbit hole of spending 4 hours on forums today. I'm okay. And because of that, I've decided that I'm going to treat these symptoms as irrelevant and not give them a lot of extra power and become a ninja of indifference. The positive self-talk is for you, your wise mind, your rational mind, your prefrontal cortex, reminding you you have made a decision that you know what this is. And because you know what this is, you know what your actions are going to be. Your actions are going to be that whatever you do, resting, pushing out, they're done with an attitude and a mindset of I'm not broken, this is temporary, and I can handle it. So let me repeat that. I am not broken, this is temporary, and I can handle it. That's the mindset. When you are out of that mindset, all the skills and all the behaviors and everything else go out the window. So I'm not broken, really important. This is temporary, really important. And I can handle this, because chances are, if you're being honest with yourself, and I know that I had to look at this, I was saying and feeling I was broken. I was thinking I was screwed forever, and I was thinking I can't handle this. And those were the messages I was sending my brain, both cognitively and behaviorally. It was evident in my attitude, it was evident in my behaviors. And those are the things that we are responsible for. Those are the skills that we have to bring to the table. And that is what it means to be in a healing state, in a healing process, in a recovery process. It doesn't mean I've been doing deep breathing and all the right things for 4 weeks and I'm no better. You are still measuring if you're doing that. You are still evaluating, you are still analyzing, you are still assessing, you are still probably ruminating, you are still inwardly focused. And all of that is going to feed that threat response system and keep things in a heightened state. So am I delaying healing by pushing out? Depends on how you're doing it, with what attitude and what mindset and behaviors. Am I delaying healing by not pushing out and doing these things? Depends on your attitude and your behaviors while you're doing that. So again, these are questions that come up with people that I coach all the time, and I wanted to kind of address it, and I thought David did a beautiful job in his blog of addressing something similar. So I hope this was helpful. People can reach out to me for coaching, and I just want to make this disclaimer because I make it all the time. Even though I was a therapist for 30 years, I'm now working as a coach, not just in the med injury community, but working with people with stress management and anxiety in general. I'm not a good fit for everybody, and so it's really important, I think, and this is what I used to tell my therapy clients over the decades, was, goodness of fit matters, guys, right? There's a lot of really good coaches out there, and there's a lot of people that have come onto the scene, and everybody has a different approach, a different tact, a different, way of framing what's going on. And I think if you're going to do some coaching with somebody, you owe it to yourself to have a consultation with them, meet with them, do a session or two, and see if it's the right fit. I used to tell my therapy clients all the time, I think people spend more time finding the right hairdresser than they do the right therapist. And I think that in this world, the pool becomes even smaller. But I know there's some people doing some really good work. I'm going to put a link down below to my friend Dan. You've heard me reference him many times in these videos, and Dan has now come on the scene as a benzo coach. He does a great job. He has immersed himself in this. Now, he has not gone through it himself, and some people might balk at that. I don't personally, because I think that sometimes there can be an advantage sometimes to be working with somebody who understands it but hasn't actually physically gone through it, but has walked very, very tightly and closely with many people, myself included, through it, understands the nervous system intricately, but isn't coming from a point of comparison, right? Or a sense of how it should go. I think he just really comes at it from the angle of understanding the nervous system. He's also really great in working with caregivers and loved ones of people going through this. So I'll put Dan's information in my link below. And of course, you guys know there's so many other good therapists out there, and I should say coaches out there. You've just heard me talk about David Powers, think the world of him, and Jen Lee, and Angela Peacock, and I think Nicole Lamberson is doing coaching and taper schedules. I know there's a bunch. Michael Priebe, and then I always make my plug too for people outside the benzo world that I think are doing great work with the nervous system. I'll always point you in the direction of Dr. Claire Week's work back in the 60s and 70s, but also Josh Fletcher out of the UK, Drew Lynn Salata, and a big person that I've been spending a lot of time really studying and sending people to is Dan Buglio in Pain Free You. He has a very similar approach to what I'm promoting, which is the fact that there's a misperception of danger. He calls it a perception of danger, actually. And in terms of what he focuses on, kind of mostly chronic pain, but he does work with people that have POTS and other symptoms. And, a lot of times people that have done things like DNRS or the Gupta program, the Annie Hopper program, who are looking to do neural retraining, Dan, kind of speaks to that, which is in essence what I do. It's actually probably in essence what most of us coaches do, is focusing on this neural retraining, which is how do we not reset our nervous systems. I don't like that language, but how do we address a nervous system that has been taxed and had the crap kicked out of it? What's the right approach? And so, again, some really great people out there, really great resources, and you're welcome to contact me at jenniferswanphd.com. That's my website. And again, if you're wanting to do coaching, we can certainly set up a consultation, have a session or two, and then determine, and if I'm not the right person, let me help you think about who might be and get you the names of people. So I wish you guys luck, and I'll check back in a couple days. Take care.